Get ready. You're listening to Give God 90 live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, there we are. We are come up on Facebook. We are up on Spreaker, and all at the same time. Everything's looking kind of good. So, excuse me. We are live on a Thursday night. Welcome to Give God 90, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you spend some time with us tonight. Last night of Hanukkah, right?
It sure is.
Okay. So, but for the folks who are going to be watching this, you can expect to see what's behind us. Now the folks on Spreaker can't see this, but for the folks who are going to be watching this on Facebook, you can expect to see what's behind us at least one more week, because I have been informed it will be up for a while. Somebody in my family enjoys decorating.
I do.
So, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And something very important we want to talk about here in a few minutes, and that is how to receive forgiveness. A lot of people talk about how to offer it, right? Mm-hmm. But not a whole lot of people understand what it means to be on the receptive end of that. Before we get into that, as people keep joining us and checking us out, let me remind you, you can find us not only on Facebook and MeWe, and you can find me on Parler. We are also on YouTube, still, kinda. We're all over the place. One of the things I never expected was to be doing what we're doing, and the other thing I never expected was to have people all over the world join us. There are people that have joined us from Indonesia, Australia, Brazil, Venezuela, which is kind of odd for me, but I guess, I think of Venezuela, I think of the little country with Hugo Chavez, right? But there are actually people, believers in Venezuela, who check in from time to time. So there we are. Don't forget, the books are available from Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, wherever fine books are sold. Tradition to Truth and God's Universe, God's Rules. Why can't I ever remember
the name
first
of your
that
books?
Yeah, right off the top of my head. I wrote them. It's like I wrote them here. Have them. But every little bit helps. The website, givegod90.com. There's all kinds of good stuff there. Lots and lots of stuff going on as we look around. And yes, I am fidgeting. Thank you. That's why I always say you have the toughest job in the world. You got to keep me straight, and sometimes that involves other things. Okay. When we think, and I'm kind of rushing through the first part of this because some of it is going to be a review, some of it's not. But when we think about forgiveness, what we look at is, for the most part, just about every Christian pastor, just about every Jewish rabbi is going to teach people how to forgive. But they're overlooking a very important part, and that is how to be on the receiving end of forgiveness. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about offending someone or the Almighty, you have to understand how to, what's your responsibility when somebody says, yes, I forgive you? Does it mean, oh, okay, we're all good? It might not. Let's look. I really think it's kind of funny, though. When Christians think about it, you've got to forgive somebody 70 times 7. Right? Because that's what they hear. That's what they concentrate on. As many times as somebody comes to you and says, I'm sorry, you have to forgive them. That's what it says. Think about this. Think about it. If there was a little more complicated than that. Not much, just a little. Because there's 2 Hebrew words that we need to look at. and these aren't real complicated. You don't have to commit them to memory. You just have to realize that sometimes the things that we think of as far as forgiveness or being forgiven may not be the original intent. Okay? Sometimes English uses similar words or one word for several different things, like the word back, right? If I was in my backyard and I hurt my back and I came indoors and rested my back against the back of the chair, which is kind of really the front of the chair, right? Because you don't sit on the back side, you sit on the front side. You know, the word back has many, many different meanings in English. Forgiveness does too. Let's dig into this just a little bit. If we look at Genesis 4:13, Cain said to the Almighty, "My punishment is greater than I can bear." Well, this idea of being able to bear or carry comes from the Hebrew word nasa. Okay, it means to lift or to carry or to take. For those keeping score, it's Strong's number 5375, and it's first translated as forgive in Genesis 50:17. And that verse reads, "So shall you go to Joseph, forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren and their sin, for they did thee evil. And now, we pray thee, forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of the Father." And Joseph wept, and he spake to them. So the idea of offering what we understand as forgiveness is for the offended party to lift or carry the burden of the sin or the offense. Just like it says, forgive the trespasses, forgive the offense, right? Lift those trespasses, lift that offense off of them, and you carry it. Now, that sounds kind of backwards, right? Doesn't it sound kind of weird? If the person who's offended now has to take that burden away from the person who offended them, that really sounds kind of strange, doesn't it? It's like,
kind of makes you not ever want to get offended by anybody,
right? Because but everybody teaches that if you offer forgiveness, right, it makes you feel better, because now you're not carrying around that "I don't like that person, they did this to me" feeling, right?
Right.
So is it backwards from everything we've been taught? Yeah, kind of. But it's backwards in a good way. When someone does something to you, and you take that burden from them, what you're actually doing is you're saying, "It's okay, I've got this. You don't have to keep it." Right? That's our modern day English way of saying that. But it's not just that simple either. When we forgive somebody who has done something wrong, no matter how great or how not so great, no matter how difficult it might be or how easy it might be, how simple it might be, no matter if it's a big thing or a little thing, we treat it all the same. We've been taught to treat it all the same. But that's not how the Bible treats it. The Bible treats it a couple of different ways depending on the situation. If we look at Exodus 34, verses 1 through 9, we're going to see something here that's kind of interesting in a way. Now, remember, this is after the golden calf incident, right? So if you want to read Exodus 34, 1 through 9.
The Lord said to Moses, "Cut 2 more stone tablets like the first 2. I will write the same words on them that were on the first 2 stones which you broke. Be ready tomorrow morning. Then come up on Mount Sinai. Stand before me there on top of the mountain. No one may come with you. No one should even be seen any place on the mountain. Not even the sheep or the cattle may eat grass near the mountain. So Moses cut 2 stone tablets like the first ones. Then early the next morning he went up to Mount Sinai. He did this just as the Lord had commanded him. Moses carried the 2 stone tablets with him. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with Moses, and the Lord called out his name. The Lord passed in front of Moses and said, I am the Lord. The Lord is a God who shows mercy and is kind. The Lord doesn't become angry quickly. The Lord has great love and faithfulness. The Lord is kind to thousands of people. The Lord forgives people for wrong and sin and turning against him. But the Lord does not forget to punish guilty people. The Lord will punish not only the guilty people, he will also punish their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and their great-great-grandchildren. Then Moses quickly bowed to the ground and worshipped. Moses said, Lord, if you are pleased with me, please go with us. I know that these are stubborn people, but forgive our evil and our sin. Take us as your own people.
Okay. That comes from the International Children's Version, by the way, or International Children's Bible. And isn't it interesting that after all of this condemnation, oh, you're guilty, I'm going to punish your children and your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and on, and Moses said, wait. If you're pleased, we'll go. But they are a stubborn people. Forgive our evil and our sin. Now that's putting some conditions out there, right? He didn't say, wipe the slate clean. He said, we know, or I know, that these people messed up. But take this part. And that brings us to another Hebrew word of salach. It means to forgive or to pardon. Actually, if you go way back into the ancient Paleo Hebrew, it means to accept part of the situation. So you're not lifting that entire burden from someone, but you are accepting part of that situation. It's not an all or nothing kind of a thing, right? Again, if you're keeping score, it's Strong's number 40 or 55-45. But it's similar but different. This time, instead of the offended party carrying the entire thing, lifting that entire burden, you get part of it. There's no debt to pay; you can't pay it back. But it's shared, but not always co-equal. Does that make sense? It's not 50-50. You share the offense, but each party now has some responsibility. Did I say that right?
Yes.
You're following it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to attempt to describe this a couple of different ways so you really kind of grasp this situation, all right? Let's start in some basics of something easy. If a young child goes to the cookie jar without permission and eats a cookie, he's offended who? Whoever told him.
The person told him not to eat the cookies.
Right. Now, this is pretty simple, pretty easy, right? Usually it's a parent, so that's what I'm going to kind of go with. Should the child apologize? Ask for forgiveness?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's pretty simple. You're instructing them on how to ask and the properality. There's a word there I'm searching for. I don't know how to be proper about it, right? But if the parent doesn't know how to do this properly, they can't instruct the child to do it properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because this child has a burden of guilt, they say, I'm sorry, I ate the cookie, I didn't ask. Okay? Now, the parent now has a choice. They can either lift that offense completely from the child, or they can share that offense. Typically, what's going to happen, the parent's going to lift the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And it's kind of not splitting hairs, but, where I'm going with this, you've got to understand that there's more to it, because the hard part's coming up. The parent who's been offended can make the choice. They can completely lift that, or they can say, no, you're going to share in some of this burden, you need to learn a lesson. typically a parent's going to take the whole thing. If the parent offers forgiveness and accepts all of the responsibility, that leaves the child completely guilt-free. There's nothing left that child needs to do. They are free to feel exactly the way they did before they took the cookie, knowing better. Okay? If the parent doesn't, then both parent and child, if only a pardon is granted, then both have something, the modern English is they both got skin in the game, I guess is a good way to say that. What happens is you have the parent says, okay, you shouldn't have done that and you need to learn a lesson. So now you have no more cookies until I tell you can. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
So now, because there's punishment involved and there's, the child can't pay back the cookie. He's certainly not going to give the cookie back, right? After he eats it. That's kind of nuts. Chances are a young child doesn't have any money. They can't pay for the cookie, right? Mm-hmm. So now, because there's a thing going on here, both of them share in the responsibility, but not equally. The parent is only out, 5 cents for a cookie, right? Mm-hmm. The child now is into this not only for the cookie, but he's also into it for the learning experience of being punished. Let's take a look at something a little more extreme. Let's talk about a spouse, husband or wife, who may be unfaithful. Now, the one who remains faithful, once the other one comes and says, I messed up, I was unfaithful. Usually that's not how nice it works, but you know where I'm going with this, right? Say, look, I'm sorry, I messed up. Now, the one who is offended has a choice. They can remove that burden of guilt, say, yep, you are completely forgiven. Just, go your own way. Will be just like it was before, right? Just like the parent would. It's okay. I know I told you not to do it, but don't do it anymore. That typically doesn't happen. Typically, a pardon is granted, meaning both people carry part of this. Not only does the offended party, even though they were completely blameless, that person's always going to think, what caused that to happen? Did I do something? Did I not do something? Right? No matter how trivial something they may or may not have done might have been, here's the thing. It doesn't matter. Because this offense, now the offended party, very, very rarely is going to grant complete forgiveness. They're going to grant a partial pardon. And what this results in is each one carries the burden. What's the responsibility of the offender for the child eating a cookie? Depends. They may not have any. They may have to endure some punishment. Depends. The unfaithful spouse, it's a little more grievous because it's a larger offense, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. The child should be grateful, right? The unfaithful spouse should also be grateful for a lot of reasons. If they're married to somebody like you, they should be grateful enough that they're still alive and can ask for forgiveness. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. and I say that a little jokingly, but not so much, because, hey, up until just a few years ago, it was a death sentence to do that, right? That unfaithful spouse should be grateful, but it bears a larger responsibility. When Moses asks for forgiveness in Exodus 34, he doesn't say, make me whole, right? He just says, look, take this part. Take the evil, take the sin. Everything else remains. Just like the unfaithful spouse. He says, look, I messed up. Hi, I see Carol's joined us tonight. Carol. So when Moses is saying, take this part, it's like the unfaithful spouse saying, we need to do something, typically the other spouse is going to give them a choice. It may be divorce. It may be divorce, and you're going to keep me into the lifestyle which I would like to become accustomed. You notice how I said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It may be, you know what? We're going to stay together because I'm going to teach you a lesson. Seen that happen too, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Exodus 34, don't forget that the sacrificial system was put in place as a reminder that we had worshipped that golden calf, which is a false idol, which is false gods, which is all of those things, like 20 minutes after the Almighty said, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a couple of weeks, but you know what I mean, right? It was very, very soon. The child with a cookie has no way to repay a parent. The spouse does. The spouse does. The spouse has the obligation now, unless the one who's offended takes the entire burden, the spouse now has some responsibility. They have skin in the game. Maybe we're ready to understand something out of Luke. Luke 11. Yeshua's teaching what we commonly call part of the Lord's Prayer, right? And he says, forgive our sins, for we also forgive everyone that is indebted to us. What he's saying here is, we need you to forgive us with the same responsibility that we forgive others. We want the Almighty to forgive us with, according to the same rules and regulations, according to the same criteria, according to the same, you know where I'm going with that, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knows what I mean. You're going to forgive, we want you to forgive us the way we treat other people. So if I'm a parent and a child comes to me and his offense is taking a cookie without permission, I can lift that entire burden, or I can teach him a lesson. If I am a nation and I worship idols, mm-hmm. I can, I'm sorry, I'm going to take this part, but you have this to pay, right? Which is the sacrificial system. A sacrifice means there's a debt that's owed somewhere, right? But it goes even deeper than that, but earlier in Luke. This comes from Luke 7, and it begins in verse 41. If you want to read 41 through wherever it ends there.
Jesus said, there were 2 men. Both men owed money to the same banker. One man owed the banker 500 silver coins. The other man owed the banker 50 silver coins. The men had no money, so they could not pay what they owed. But the banker told them that they did not have to pay him. Which one of the 2 men will love the banker more? Simon the Pharisee answered, I think it would be the one that owed him the most money. Jesus said to Simon, you are right. Then Jesus turned towards the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? When I came into your house, you gave me no water for my feet, but she washed my feet with her tears and dried my feet with her hair. You did not kiss me, but she has been kissing my feet since I came in. You did not rub my head with oil, but she rubbed my feet with perfume. I tell you that her many sins are forgiven. This is clear because she showed great love. But the person who has only a little to be forgiven will feel only a little love.
How about that? So the proper response when you receive forgiveness is love, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the child shows love to the parent by doing what? Being obedient. Next time he wants a cookie, he or she wants a cookie, goes and asks, can I have a cookie, right? Mm-hmm. The spouse, on the other hand, how does he show love? He or she may need to show love by backing off and giving some space and some time and to heal to the other offended party, right? Mm-hmm. You know what? He or she may show love by writing that alimony check, every week or every month or whenever it's due, right? They may show love by, I understand you're upset. Let me just go my way, you go your way. Or he may show love by any number of things. It may be, from there on out, he is as faithful as a puppy, right? Mm-hmm. You never know. And it depends on the situation. It depends on what the offended party is willing to do. Are they willing to say, I will lift and hold and carry this burden from you? Or are they willing to say, we're going to share it, but you're going to share more of it than I do? Will the offended party say, we're going to share it, but I'll carry more than you do? It depends. But it's not unconditional. There's no such thing as unconditional love. Everything comes with a condition. When the people who say that God loves us unconditionally haven't read their Bible. Because there are times when he says, if you do this, then I will do that. Mm-hmm. If you hear my voice, if you obey my commands, you will be a special treasure. Does that mean that he doesn't love the people who don't know yet? No. Now, I think it's Psalm 5 who says he hates a sinner, right? So, love comes with conditions, even from the Almighty, okay? He is not looking to gain the love and trust of the people who hate him. It's that simple, because they never will. They don't understand it. It's going to take, and I hate to say a miracle, but it's going to take more than that to get somebody who truly hates the Creator to turn around. They haven't reached bottom yet. They haven't reached that point of no return yet. So when we think about receiving forgiveness, and we are able to equate this to a child with a cookie and a parent, we're able to equate this with a spouse who's been unfaithful. Can we equate this with an individual or a nation who has turned their back on the Almighty? When they say, you know what, I know you're there, I know what you're doing is good, but right now, what's over there looks a lot more fun. I'm going to go over there and have some fun. I'll be back, maybe. And then you come back. What is the level of forgiveness at that point? Well, we know that mixed multitude at Mount Sinai needed to be reminded constantly that they owed something. That's where the sacrificial system comes in. We know that the Almighty, sends a Messiah. And by the way, what's one of the things that Yeshua said? If you love me, you got to do what? Keep my commands? Oh, there it is again. I'll forgive you. Right? Mm-hmm. But you've got to give me something in return. This is not a freebie. This is shared. Just like at Mount Sinai, they didn't get off scot-free. That was shared. You owe. Yeshua's telling the same thing, right? You owe. Mm-hmm. You got to give me something. You got to show me the love, right? You got to show me the love. There was a movie that did that or something. Anyway, I remember hearing it. I don't remember which one it was because that was a long time ago. Here's the other part of this. When you live, or when you've been forgiven and you live with this gratification towards the one who has taken your burden or is sharing part of your burden, how much better is it going to be for both if you do the things that they're asking? Husbands and wives, how many times, did you take the trash out yet? No, you didn't. I'm sorry. I'll do it. And for the next couple hours, he's, yes, dear. Yes, anything you said. What do you need? You want me to do what? Okay, well, not a problem. Diamond ring, I think that's a little out of whack, but, a little out of balance for what I did. That offense might not equal a diamond ring. Right? You understand? there is that that situation where you should be gracious enough and grateful enough that someone has lifted part of that burden or all of that burden, that you're willing to show that love. You're willing to, and I don't really want to say be obedient to the spouse or be obedient to the parent, but you should do you should strive to do the things that they would want you to do, right? For the parent, they want the child to follow instruction, just like the Almighty wants us to follow His instructions. For the spouse, they should strive to make the other person happy. Or, and I'm not saying that they're going to sit around a campfire, hold hands, and sing "Kumbaya," right? Because that's just not going to happen. What I'm saying is that this is the person who really should be. If they need to back away, give them space. You back away, give them space. If you need to grovel a little, grovel. That's what you need to do. Not every situation is going to be exactly the same. And that's what we try to do with Scripture. We try to rubber stamp everything just like it's the same, and it's not. The Almighty makes all of us different and not equally different. Some people He designs so that, I don't know, that they make wonderful parents. Others He makes so that they're not so wonderful parents. Some people are great adult children, some are not so great adult children, right? Some people, are really great entertainers, and some are really great ball players. Some, take your pick. How many different people are there in the world? That's how many different great things there are in the world. You just have to figure out what it is that you're great at and go do it for the benefit of others. I'm going to, unless you had something else to say, there's one more point I want to make about this. Being forgiven is not always about starting over. Because you can't start over. It doesn't matter who you are or what the situation is. But you can, and you have been given the ability to start from where you are. Doesn't matter what it is. Mount Sinai, they started from where they were. It happened to include a sacrificial system. The child with a cookie starts from where they are. Whether it's taking all of the offense or part of the offense. The spouse starts from where they are. You don't get to go back and do it over. You have to start from where you are. Because there just aren't any do-overs. You have to start from where you are. But learn from what you did. Be grateful and gracious and move on. Show some gratitude. Show some respect. Show some humanity. Now, if you go to somebody and say, I messed up. I know that I did something to hurt you, harm you, offend you, whatever it is. Okay? And the person says, I can never forgive you for that. Right? And I know people like this. Mm-hmm. It's okay. They're not willing to take part of your burden. They're not willing to take all of your burden. Now you have a choice. Because what you did was that wrong, or they thought it was so wrong that they're not willing to forgive. Forgive their unforgiving. Because what you're doing at that point is carrying their grudge against you. Mm-hmm. And you can move on from there. There's
and it works.
Huh?
It works.
It works. Yes. It works. Because, here's and I know that from experience. When you forgive their unforgiving, what are you doing? You're actually being gracious, right? Like I said, you don't have to sit around a campfire and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Sometimes the best way you can love somebody is from a distance, right? I know people like that. I really do. I have people in my life. It's much easier to love someone from a distance. But don't think just because they won't forgive you that it's the end of the world, because it's not. It really isn't. You have the opportunity to start from where you are and take that relationship, as bad as it may seem at the time, and move from there. Mm-hmm. You know, just do what needs to be done to show that you are willing to be gracious, that you are willing to give them the space they want. You are willing to be, I don't want to say obedient. You're willing to do what they are asking you to do by leaving them alone, right? Mm-hmm. I also know people who think that they have to, every time something happens, they think they have to fix it, right? There's people in the world like that, and they're not always in it for the best interest of the situation. They want to make themselves feel better, and that's not always a good situation. Forgiveness is much more, and it goes much farther than "I'm sorry." You know, when Zoe and Blair were in school, and something would happen, that somebody came up with this line: "I accept your apology, just don't do it anymore." Mm-hmm. And they were supposed to just never speak of whatever it was again, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't work with 6-year-old kids, and it doesn't work with 60-year-old people. You have to be willing to be grateful, and you have to be willing to move on from where you're at, because you can't start over. It's not going to happen. Start from where you are and move on from there. Okay. That is all I have. And hopefully you understand at least, what I use, 3 passages tonight? At least a little better understanding of what is involved in them. So read over that stuff. Don't just take this for what I say. Go read these things. Mm-hmm. You've heard them. Go read them. See what they're at. Look at different translations and find out, because when I use the International Children's Bible, I keep saying it's the simplest, easiest there is to get through. Mm-hmm. And that's not always what you want when you're studying. It's just because it's the simplest to read. Okay? So go study. Go do your thing. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it.
Hi, Jay.
I don't know of anything else. Do you? Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate everything you have done. I wish each and every one of you to have a wonderfully blessed week.
Yes.
So until Monday, have a blessed few days, people.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.